The arrival. The massive Zarkonian warship Eternal Dominion glided silently through the inky void of space, its sleek obsidian hull absorbing what little starlight reached this remote corner of the galaxy. On the bridge, High Commander Vexthor stood with his four arms clasped behind his back, compound eyes fixed on the viewscreen before him. A small blue-green orb hung in the vastness. Earth. Pitiful, Vexthor muttered, mandibles clicking in disdain. To think we traveled so far for this. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Zixara, approached with a datapad. The preliminary scans are complete, High Commander. The planet's defenses are primitive, at best. Their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical propellant projectiles and crude fission devices. Vexthor's exoskeleton rippled in amusement. Fission. How quaint. They're practically begging to be conquered. There is one peculiarity, sir, Zixara added hesitantly. Their information networks are surprisingly robust for their technological level. They seem to prioritize communication over weaponry. Typical of prey species, Vexthor dismissed. They seek safety in numbers, relying on warnings rather than strength. It will make little difference. As the Eternal Dominion drew closer to Earth, a fleet of smaller craft emerged from its hangars. Hundreds of attack ships and troop carriers spread out in a carefully choreographed formation, their arc encompassing the entire planet. This was a maneuver the Zarkonians had perfected over millennia of conquest. The Shroud of Inevitability, they called it. No world had ever survived its deployment. On Earth, the first signs of the impending invasion were dismissed as technical glitches. Satellites faltered, communications became erratic, and radar systems flickered with anomalous readings. By the time military leaders realized the truth, it was too late. The shroud had descended. Vexthor watched with cold satisfaction as the invasion began. Zarkonian ships pierced the atmosphere, their energy shields easily deflecting the primitive missiles and projectiles hurled against them. On the viewscreen, cities burned, and panic spread across the globe. "Witness, Zixara," Vexthor said, gesturing to the chaos below. "This is why we rule the stars, and lesser beings cower on their homeworlds. Our technology, our tactics, they are beyond comprehension to such primitives." Zixara nodded, but something in her posture suggested unease. "It does seem too easy, doesn't it, sir? In all our years of conquest, we've never encountered a species so utterly defenseless." Vexthor turned to his second-in-command, eyes narrowing. "You suspect a trap from these primitives?" "Not a trap, precisely," Zixara clarified. "But perhaps an oversight on our part. Their information networks, their focus on communication, it suggests a capacity for cooperation we rarely see. What if they have hidden strengths we haven't accounted for?" The High Commander considered this for a moment before letting out a chittering laugh. "Hidden strengths. Look at them, Zixara. They're scattered, disorganized. Their leaders squabble while we lay waste to their cities. What possible threat could they pose?" As if in answer to his question, a proximity alarm blared. Vexthor whirled back to the viewscreen, mandibles clicking rapidly in surprise. A swarm of small, fast-moving objects had appeared seemingly out of nowhere, streaking towards the Zarkonian fleet. "Impossible," Vexthor hissed. "Our scans detected no such weapons." The objects, hundreds of them, then thousands, weaved through the Zarkonian formation with impossible agility. Where they struck, Zarkonian ships erupted in flames, their supposedly impenetrable shields failing in an instant. "Status report," Vexthor bellowed as the bridge shook from a nearby explosion. A tactical officer's voice quavered as he responded. "High Commander, we're under attack by some kind of autonomous drones. They're too small and fast for our targeting systems, and they're equipped with weaponry we've never encountered before. We've already lost 20% of our attack craft." Vexthor's mind reeled. This couldn't be happening. These humans, these primitives, they were supposed to be easy prey. How could they possess technology that rivaled, perhaps even surpassed, that of the mighty Zarkonian Empire. As he watched his carefully planned invasion crumble in real time, Vexthor felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: fear. "All ships, pull back," he ordered, his voice harsh with desperation. "Regroup at the polar orbit and prepare for a full assault. We will not be humiliated by these apes." But even as the words left his mouth, Vexthor knew the tide had turned. The element of surprise, the overwhelming force that had served the Zarkonians so well in countless conquests, was lost. Now they faced an enemy they didn't understand, with capabilities they couldn't fathom. As the Eternal Dominion shuddered under the first direct hits from Earth's mysterious defenders, Vexthor turned to Zixera. The sub-commander's expression was grim, her earlier unease now fully justified. "You were right to be cautious," Vexthor admitted. "It seems we have indeed underestimated these humans. The question now is, how badly?" The battle raged on, Earth's hidden strengths finally revealed. And as ships fell from the sky and careful plans crumbled to ash, the Zarkonians were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. They had come to conquer a primitive world, only to find themselves woefully outmatched. The invasion of Earth had begun, but it was rapidly becoming clear that this would be no easy conquest. The real war, a war that would reshape the galaxy, was only just beginning. The surprise. The skies above Earth blazed with the light of 1,000 suns as Zarkonian warships exploded in rapid succession. What had begun as a routine conquest for the alien invaders had devolved into chaos and confusion. High Commander Vexthor, his exoskeleton trembling with a mix of rage and disbelief, barked orders from the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. "Status report. Now," he demanded, all four of his arms gesticulating wildly at the tactical display. Sub-Commander Zixera's voice was steady, but strained. "We've lost nearly 40% of our attack fleet, sir. The human drones are adapting. Each wave seems more effective than the last." Vexthor's compound eyes narrowed. "Adapting? That's impossible. No autonomous system can evolve tactics that quickly." "And yet," Zixera replied, "the evidence is before us." On the view screen, a new wave of human drones swarmed a Zarkonian battlecruiser. Unlike earlier attacks, these drones moved in perfect synchronization, forming complex patterns that confused the ship's targeting systems. In a matter of seconds, the massive vessel was reduced to a floating hulk, its weapons and engines disabled with surgical precision. "They're not trying to destroy us," Zixera observed. "At least, not all of us. They're disabling our ships, possibly for capture and study." Vexthor chittered in frustration. This was all wrong. The humans were supposed to be primitive, easy prey for the mighty Zarkonian Empire. Instead, they were revealing layers of technological sophistication that rivaled, perhaps even surpassed, his own civilization's capabilities. "Launch the mindbreakers," Vexthor commanded, his voice low and dangerous. "If we can't defeat their machines, we'll attack their minds." The mindbreakers were the pride of the Zarkonian military, massive psychic amplifiers capable of broadcasting terror and confusion across entire continents. They had broken the will of countless species, reducing proud warriors to whimpering wrecks in a matter of hours. As the sinister devices activated, a wave of psychic energy washed over the Earth. Vexthor watched the tactical display eagerly, expecting to see signs of panic and disarray among the human forces. Instead, nothing changed. "Sir," one of the bridge officers called out, "the mindbreakers are having no effect. The humans appear to be immune." Vexthor slammed a clawed hand against his command chair. "Impossible. No species has ever resisted the mindbreakers. Increase power to maximum." The psychic assault intensified, and for a moment, it seemed to be working. The swarms of human drones faltered, their movements becoming erratic. Vexthor allowed himself a moment of hope. Then, something unexpected happened. The drones didn't just recover, they adapted. Their formation shifted, creating a complex electromagnetic field that not only shielded them from the psychic attack, but reflected it back at the Zarkonian fleet. Across the invasion force, alien soldiers began to scream, overwhelmed by their own psychic weapons. Ships veered off course, crashing into one another as their crews lost control. "Shut it down," Vex Thor roared. "Shut down the mindbreakers now." As the psychic assault ended, an eerie calm settled over the battlefield. The human drones hung in space, motionless, as if waiting. "They could have destroyed us," Zixera said quietly. "Why didn't they?" Before Vex Thor could respond, a new signal cut across all Zarkonian communication channels. A face appeared on the view screen. A human face, weathered and stern, with eyes that seemed to bore into Vex Thor's very soul. "I am General Elena Chen of the Earth Defense Force," the human said, her voice calm but laced with steel. "You have violated our space, attacked our people, and demonstrated hostile intent. Under normal circumstances, we would be within our rights to annihilate your entire fleet." Vex Thor bristled at the implied threat, but remained silent. This human, this Elena Chen, radiated an authority he couldn't ignore. However, Chen continued, "We are not like you. We do not seek conquest or domination. We only wish to live in peace and explore the stars. So I offer you this one chance. Withdraw your forces immediately, and we will allow you to leave our system unharmed. Refuse, and we will have no choice but to demonstrate the full extent of our capabilities." The bridge of the Eternal Dominion erupted in chittering whispers. Retreat. The very notion was anathema to Zarkonian culture. They were conquerors, not cowards. But as Vex Thor looked at the tactical display, at the wreckage of his once mighty fleet, and the swarms of human drones that had caused such devastation, he felt the cold grip of reality. "You said they were primitive," he hissed at his intelligence officers. "You said this would be an easy conquest. Explain yourselves." The lead intelligence analyst stepped forward, his exoskeleton pale with fear. "High Commander, we may have misinterpreted the data. It seems the humans deliberately obscured their true capabilities. They wanted to appear weak." "But why?" Zixera asked. "Why invite invasion?" A new voice cut in. The human, General Chen, still watching from the view screen. "Because, Sub-Commander Zixera, we have been aware of your empire for some time. We knew that sooner or later you would set your sights on Earth. So we prepared. We let you think we were easy prey, knowing that your arrogance would be your undoing." Vex Thor's mandibles clicked in shock. They had known. All along, the humans had known, had planned for this moment. "You have 1 hour to begin your withdrawal," Chen said, her tone brooking no argument. "After that, we will consider your silence as a declaration of continued hostility, and we will respond accordingly." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Dominion in stunned silence. Vex Thor turned to Zixera, his earlier bravado entirely evaporated. "Prepare the fleet for withdrawal," he said quietly, "and may the gods have mercy on us all." As the battered Zarkonian ships limped away from Earth, Vex Thor couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a military defeat. It was the end of an era. The mighty Zarkonian Empire, terror of 1,000 worlds, had finally met its match. And somehow, he knew, the galaxy would never be the same again. The counterattack. The vast emptiness of space was shattered by the thunderous roar of engines as the Earth Defense Force fleet emerged from hyperspace, led by the flagship Humanity's Hope. The armada of sleek, angular vessels took up formation around the retreating Zarkonian forces. On the bridge of Humanity's Hope, General Elena Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her stern gaze fixed on the tactical display. "Status report," she commanded, her voice calm but authoritative. Colonel Rashid Khoury, her second-in-command, responded promptly. "The Zarkonians are in full retreat, General. Their fleet is in disarray, and we're detecting multiple distress signals from damaged ships." Chen nodded, her expression unreadable. "And Operation Trojan Horse." A sly smile crossed Corey's face. "Fully operational, ma'am. Our infiltration units are in place on key Zarkonian vessels, including their flagship, the Eternal Dominion." "Excellent," Chen replied. "It's time we showed these would-be conquerors that humanity is not to be trifled with." Commence Phase 2. Across the human fleet, soldiers and crew members snapped to attention. This was the moment they had trained for, the culmination of years of preparation and sacrifice. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Vexthor was still reeling from the shock of defeat. His once proud ship limped through space, its systems barely functional after the brutal engagement with Earth's forces. "High Commander," Sub-Commander Zixera reported, her voice tinged with fear, "we're detecting a massive energy surge from the human fleet. They're powering up weapons." Vexthor's mandibles clicked in panic. "Impossible. They gave us their word." His words were cut short as the ship suddenly lurched, throwing him off balance. Alarms blared throughout the vessel as systems began to fail one by one. "We're being sabotaged from within," a frantic officer shouted. "Unknown intruders air." The officer's report was silenced as the bridge plunged into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the command center in an eerie red glow. And there, standing in the center of the bridge, were 5 figures in sleek, black armor, human figures. "In the name of Earth and all her people," the lead infiltrator announced, her voice distorted by her helmet's audio system. "This vessel is now under our control." Vexthor, for the first time in his long life, found himself speechless. How had the humans managed this? How had they bypassed every security measure, every failsafe? Outside, the scene was repeating itself across the Zarkonian fleet. Ships suddenly veered off course, weapon systems powered down, and communication channels fell silent. The mighty armada that had threatened Earth mere hours ago was now helpless, caught in a trap of unprecedented scale and audacity. Back on humanity's hope, General Chen allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. "Colonel Corey, open a channel to the Zarkonian High Command. It's time we had a chat about the future of our species." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the shaken and humiliated Vexthor. Chen's voice was cool and measured as she addressed him. "High Commander Vexthor, I hope I have your full attention now. You came to our world seeking easy conquest, but instead, you found a foe beyond your comprehension. We could destroy your fleet with ease, but that is not our way. Instead, we offer you a choice." Vexthor's compound eyes darted nervously. His earlier arrogance completely evaporated. What choice?" he managed to stammer. Chen's gaze hardened. "You can either face trial for your crimes against sentient beings across the galaxy, or you can agree to our terms for a new galactic order, one based on cooperation and mutual respect, not conquest and subjugation." The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell silent as the weight of Chen's words sank in. This wasn't just a military defeat, it was a complete upheaval of everything the Zarkonians had believed about their place in the universe. "But how?" Zixera finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "How did you achieve all this?" Chen's expression softened slightly. "Humanity's greatest strength has always been our diversity, our ability to adapt and innovate. While you saw our differences as weakness, we used them to create technologies and strategies beyond your imagination. Our global communication networks, which you dismissed as primitive, allowed us to coordinate a planetary defense unlike anything you've encountered." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We knew war was coming, so we prepared, not just with weapons, but with understanding. We studied your tactics, your technology, your very psychology. And we used that knowledge to defeat you not just militarily, but philosophically." Vexthor slumped in his command chair, the full magnitude of his failure finally hitting him. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice hollow. Chen's reply was firm, but not unkind. "Now, High Commander, we reshape the galaxy. Together, if you're willing, or with you as a footnote in history, if you're not. As the human fleet began to escort the captured Zarkonian ships back towards Earth, a new era dawned. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had catapulted onto the galactic stage, armed with technologies and ideals that would change the course of cosmic history. The stars themselves seemed to burn brighter that day, as if in recognition of the momentous shift in the balance of power. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The revelation. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension. Representatives from 100 worlds shifted nervously in their seats, their eyes fixed on the central podium where General Elena Chen stood, flanked by her team of human diplomats and scientists. Across from them, a delegation of Zarkonians, led by the now humbled High Commander Vexthor, waited with barely concealed anxiety. Chen's voice, clear and strong, echoed through the chamber. Esteemed members of the Galactic Council, we come before you today, not as conquerors, but as peacekeepers. The recent conflict between Earth and the Zarkonian Empire has revealed truths that can no longer be ignored. She gestured to a holographic display that sprang to life above the podium, showing the intricate network of Earth's global defense system. What you see here is not just a weapon of war, but a testament to human ingenuity and cooperation. Our strength lies not in domination, but in unity. Murmurs rippled through the assembled aliens. Many had dismissed humans as primitives, barely worth notice in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Now they were forced to confront a species that had not only repelled one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy, but had done so with technology that bordered on the miraculous. Chen continued, her words measured and deliberate. We did not seek this conflict, but neither did we shrink from it. When faced with the threat of annihilation, humanity did what it has always done. We adapted, we innovated, and we overcame. She turned to face the Zarkonian delegation directly. High Commander Vexthor, would you care to share your perspective on recent events? Vexthor rose slowly, his once proud posture now hunched with the weight of defeat. The humans, he began, his voice barely above a whisper, are unlike any species we have encountered. We thought them weak, divided. We were wrong. A collective gasp went through the chamber. Never in recorded history had a Zarkonian admitted to such a miscalculation. Their technology, Vexthor continued, gaining strength, is beyond anything we thought possible. Their adaptive AI systems, their quantum communication networks, their mastery of psychic shielding, it's all centuries ahead of our own capabilities. Chen nodded, then turned back to address the council. What the High Commander fails to mention is that these advancements were born not from a desire for conquest, but from necessity. Earth has long been divided, our nations often at odds. But in preparing for this moment, we found a unity of purpose that transcended our differences. She gestured to her team, each member representing a different nation, culture, and scientific discipline. This is the true face of humanity, diverse, adaptable, and unstoppable when united. A counselor from a distant gas giant, its tentacles waving in agitation, spoke up. But how can we trust that you won't use this power to dominate us all, as the Zarkonians attempted to do? Chen's response was immediate and firm, because that is not our way. We've seen the cost of imperialism, both in our own history and in the actions of the Zarkonian Empire. We propose a new path forward, one of cooperation, mutual defense, and shared scientific advancement. She activated another holographic display, this one showing a complex network of interconnected worlds. Imagine a galactic community where each species contributes its unique strengths, where we face threats together rather than alone. This is the future we envision. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some excited, some skeptical, all intensely curious. Chen let the noise wash over her, knowing that this moment would be recorded in history books across the galaxy. As the commotion settled, an elder statesman of the council, a beam of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, spoke. General Chen, your words are compelling, your vision admirable. But surely you must understand our hesitation. The balance of power in our galaxy has remained relatively stable for millennia. What you propose would upend everything we know. Chen nodded, her expression solemn. Change is never easy, honored counselor, but it is often necessary. The old ways of conquest and subjugation have brought us to the brink of galactic war. We offer an alternative, a future where cooperation replaces conflict, where diversity is celebrated rather than crushed. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. We do not ask you to trust us blindly. We ask only for the opportunity to prove ourselves, to show that there is a better way forward for all sentient beings. As her words hung in the air, a slow ripple of agreement began to spread through the chamber. Species that had been bitter enemies for generations found themselves nodding in cautious agreement. The Zarkonians, once the unquestioned masters of conquest, now looked to the humans with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. Vexthor, in a move that shocked even his own delegation, stepped forward. If the humans are willing to forgive our transgression and offer us a place in this new galactic order, then the Zarkonian Empire will support their proposal. The chamber fell silent, the weight of the moment palpable. Then, slowly at first, but with growing enthusiasm, representatives began to signal their approval. A new era was dawning, one that would reshape the very fabric of galactic society. As the session adjourned, Chen found herself surrounded by curious aliens, all eager to learn more about Earth and its remarkable inhabitants. She answered their questions patiently, all the while knowing that the real work was just beginning. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, seeing only a fractious, primitive species. Now they were beginning to understand the truth, that in humanity's diversity lay its greatest strength, and that this strength could reshape the stars themselves. The revelation was complete. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had changed the course of galactic history. And as Chen looked out at the sea of alien faces, now filled with hope rather than fear, she knew that the greatest adventures still lay ahead. The Reckoning. 5 years had passed since the fateful day when humanity stepped onto the galactic stage. The grand halls of the newly established Galactic Cooperative hummed with activity, a testament to the radical changes that had swept across known space. At the heart of this transformation stood Earth, once dismissed as a backwater world, now the nexus of a new interstellar age. General Elena Chen, now serving as Earth's primary representative to the cooperative, stood before a vast window overlooking the sprawling space station that served as the organization's headquarters. The view never failed to take her breath away. Ships of all shapes and sizes, representing dozens of species, coming and going in a carefully choreographed dance of diplomacy and commerce. Quite a sight, isn't it? A familiar voice chittered behind her. Chen turned to see Zixera, the former Zarkonian sub-commander, now a key liaison between her people and the cooperative. Chen smiled warmly. It never gets old, Zixera. Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent chime from Chen's communication device. General Chen, your presence is required in the emergency council chamber immediately, a voice announced, tension evident in its tone. Chen and Zixera exchanged worried glances before hurrying to the chamber. As they entered, they found the room already packed with representatives from across the galaxy, all wearing expressions of grave concern. At the center of the room stood a holographic display showing a massive unknown vessel approaching the edges of charted space. Its design was like nothing anyone had ever seen, a writhing mass of biomechanical tendrils surrounding a core that pulsed with ominous energy. We've detected no response to our hails, a Trinaxian analyst reported, his 3 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. Its power readings are off the charts, and it's on a direct course for the heart of cooperative space. The room erupted into a cacophony of worried voices and frantic suggestions. Chen raised her hand, calling for silence. "We've faced threats before," she said, her voice steady and reassuring. "We'll face this one together, as we've learned to do." She turned to Zixera. "Coordinate with the Zarkonian fleet. Your ships are still among the fastest in the galaxy. We'll need them for reconnaissance." Zixera nodded, already moving to carry out the order. 5 years ago, such cooperation would have been unthinkable. Now, it was second nature. "Dr. Okafor," Chen called out to Earth's leading xenobiologist, "I want your team analyzing every scrap of data we can gather on this entity. If it's biological in nature, we need to understand it." As the chamber buzzed with activity, each species contributing its unique strengths to the developing strategy, Chen couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought them here. The invasion that had nearly spelled Earth's doom had instead catalyzed a new era of galactic cooperation. Hours passed as the mysterious vessel drew closer. Zarkonian scout ships darted in and out of sensor range, feeding a constant stream of data back to the cooperative. Dr. Okafor's team worked tirelessly, piecing together a picture of the entity that grew more alarming by the minute. "It's not just a ship," Dr. Okafor reported, her voice filled with a mix of fear and awe. "It's alive, a vast, space-faring organism with technology integrated into its very being. And it's hungry." The implications hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just an invader, it was a predator, and the civilizations of the cooperative were its prey. Chen's mind raced, drawing on the lessons of the past 5 years. "We need to approach this differently," she announced. "This isn't a battle we can win with firepower alone. We need to communicate." Her suggestion was met with skepticism, but Chen pressed on. "Every species here has faced existential threats, has evolved and adapted to survive. This entity, no matter how alien, must have done the same. We need to understand its needs, its motivations." What followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Drawing on the combined knowledge and capabilities of 100 worlds, the cooperative launched a multifaceted effort to engage with the entity. Zarkonian ships danced in complex patterns, mimicking the creature's movements. Earth's most powerful telepaths broadcast messages of peace and inquiry. Trinaxian scientists used exotic particles to paint vast murals across the vacuum of space, attempting to establish a visual language. For days, there was no response. The entity continued its implacable advance, shrugging off attempts to impede its progress. Panic began to set in among some members of the cooperative, with calls for a preemptive strike growing louder. Chen stood firm. "We've come too far to abandon our principles now," she insisted. "We will keep trying until the very end." And then, just as hope began to fade, a response came. The entity slowed its approach, its writhing tendrils adopting a new configuration. Slowly, painfully, a form of communication was established. The truth, when it emerged, was staggering. The entity was not one creature, but many, the last survivors of a galaxy long dead, fused together in a desperate bid for survival. They had traveled for eons, searching for a new home, consuming what they needed to survive along the way. In the face of this revelation, the cooperative didn't retreat. Instead, guided by the principles of cooperation and understanding that humanity had championed, they reached out. Offers of aid were made, plans for coexistence proposed. It wasn't easy. The entity's needs were vast, its nature fundamentally alien. But step by step, compromise by compromise, a solution began to take shape. Uninhabited systems were offered for the entity to inhabit, while cooperative scientists worked to find ways to sustain it without the need for consumption of sentient worlds. As negotiations progressed, Chen found herself once again staring out at the stars, Zixera by her side. "You know," the Zarkonian said thoughtfully, "there was a time when we would have seen this entity only as a threat to be destroyed." Chen nodded, "And we would have seen you the same way. But look at us now, former enemies working together to welcome an entity from beyond the edge of known space. We've come so far. Thanks to humanity." Zixera chittered softly. You showed us all a better way." Chen shook her head, smiling. "Not just humanity. All of us together. We're stronger united than we ever were apart." As they stood there, watching the vast entity take its place as the newest, strangest member of the galactic community, both Chen and Zixera knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and terrors yet undiscovered. But whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not as separate species, but as a united galactic civilization. The cooperative had faced its greatest test and emerged stronger than ever, and at its heart stood humanity. No longer underestimated, no longer dismissed, but recognized as the catalyst that had transformed the very nature of galactic civilization. As stars twinkled in the velvet darkness of space, they seemed to shine with new promise. The promise of a future where understanding trumped fear, where diversity was strength, and where the combined ingenuity of 100 worlds could overcome any obstacle. The reckoning was complete, and the next great adventure was just beginning.